Have you wondered if music is haram or is it mubah?
It's impermissible. No, it's
Heard many
permissible.
arguments. Let's find out ourselves and let's delve in the evidences. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As-salatu was-salam ala Nabi Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wasallam. If you're new to my channel, I'm Sa'iqa, a qualified alima, and our today's topic is music. So first of all, I want you to know there are two opinions regarding music. One is that music is haram, and the second opinion is that music is mubah. So who says music is haram? It is the majority of the ulama, the four schools of law, Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Qayyim, they all say music is haram. But I would like to point out that the original founders of the four schools of law, their opinion was not that music is haram. Their opinion was that music is extremely disliked. But over time, as the schools evolved, the dominant opinion is that music is haram. And what they mean by haram is that these musical instruments, they are haram aslan, i.e. these instruments are all haram in themselves, and only those musical instruments are permissible which are mentioned in hadith. For example, using duff on weddings and Eid, or using drums in war. It was used previously, or using drums like in the month of Ramadan in certain countries at Sahri time, they use drums to wake up people. So for this group, musical instruments are haram in themselves, unless there are some exceptions from hadith. And this means that all wind and string instruments such as flute and guitar are haram aslan, are haram in themselves, but some percussion instruments like the duff and the drum are permissible. Moving on to the second group of ulama, and they are minority, and in their opinion music is not haram aslan, but aslan music is mubah. But it can become haram depending on other factors. For example, the lyrics, the kind of environment in which the music is being listened to, the social gathering you're in, the kind of movements that can take place, the kind of thoughts that are occurring in your mind. So for this group of ulama, if that music makes you disobey Allah, it's haram. But if that music actually helps you to obey Allah, then this music is permissible. So who are these ulama? I want to point out that this ikhtilaf, this difference of opinion, it's not a modern difference of opinion. It's existed from very early on. So At-Tabari, a 3rd century scholar, according to him music was haram. He actually wrote that Ibrahim bin Sa'd al-Zuhri, a 1st century qadi, according to him music was mubah. So we know this difference of opinion, it's from the very beginning of the 1st century. Also Ubaidullah al-Anbari, he didn't agree that music is haram. This is also the opinion of Ibn Hazm, al-Ghazali, and Qadi Abu Bakr, and more recently this was the opinion of Yusuf al-Qardawi. May Allah have mercy on all our scholars. So let's find out what are the evidences on which these fatwa are based on. The first evidence is from the Quran, from Surah Luqman, ayah number 6. Allah Ta'ala says, "And of mankind is he who purchases idle talk to mislead from the path of Allah." So there's a discussion, what does it mean by idle talk? And for that we need to understand the context. In Mecca, there used to be a mushrik, a very rich businessman. He used to travel for his business, and when he went on his travels, he found out some Persian stories. So he came back to Mecca and said to the people of Mecca, "You listen to Muhammad and he tells you about Ad and Thamud. Come and listen to me, I have better stories to tell you." There is also another narrative, and this is narrated by Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, and he said that this mushrik, whenever he found anyone is interested in listening to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he didn't like it and he wanted to divert the people's attention from Rasulullah. So what he used to do, he would invite these people over to his house. He would offer them food, and he would get professional singing girls who would sing and dance and distract these men from listening to Rasulullah. So these are the two narratives we have about the background of this surah. In one, this man is telling ancient stories about the Persians, and in another one he's got singing girls who are distracting these people. So those scholars who say music is haram, this ayah is an evidence for them, and they take the narrative of Ibn Abbas. At-Tabari mentions in his tafsir that Ibn Abbas and Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhum, according to them, idle talk in this ayah means singing. And according to Al-Hasan al-Basri, it means singing and music. For those who say music is haram, they take the narrative of Ibn Abbas and this ayah, the background, the context is an evidence for them to say music is haram. Those who say music is permissible, they say first of all, this ayah is implicit. To make something haram aslan, you need an explicit evidence. Secondly, this is the opinion of some Sahaba. Ibn Hazm points out not all Sahaba agreed ayah means singing. So for instance, some say it's referring to the ancient tales. And thirdly, the opinion of a Sahabi cannot make something haram. To make something haram, the evidence has to be from the Quran or the Hadith, the Sunnah. So this group understands this ayah as a lesson for the believers, and the lesson is that any type of entertainment which can lead to one disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that entertainment becomes haram. So even though that entertainment might be permissible, for example, you're watching some sort of sports on TV, but then you forget to pray salah on time, you become too lazy and you don't recite the Quran, then whatever was permissible has actually become haram. That entertainment has become haram because it made you disobey Allah. So Ibn Hazm actually says if someone listens to music and disobeys Allah, this person is a fasiq. But if this person listens to a certain type of music which actually relaxes them and it actually helps them to become obedient, then that music is permissible. There are more Quranic ayat which are used as evidence, but I won't mention them because it's the same argument, because all of those ayat are actually implicit. There is no explicit verse in the Quran which says music is haram. And because they're all implicit, it's the same argument. So I just presented one ayah to you so you just get an idea of the discussion behind these verses. So now let's move on to hadith, because the main evidence that music is haram aslan or music is mubah aslan, the main evidence for both of these fatwa, it actually comes from a hadith. And there are many hadith, but most of them, they are all weak. So I'm not going to mention all the weak hadith because a weak narration cannot be used as an evidence to make something haram. So I'm only going to use 2 hadith which each group uses as an evidence to say haram aslan or mubah aslan. So let's get into the narrations. Okay, it's important to know that Al-Bukhari, in Sahih al-Bukhari, he has 2 types of narrations. Because everyone thinks everything in Al-Bukhari it's Sahih. No, Bukhari, he has 2 types of hadith, rahimahullah ta'ala. Bukhari's conditions for his Sahih hadith, for his Sahih narrations were very high, very strict conditions. So those hadith which are actually Sahih, they meet the conditions Bukhari had set for his Sahih hadith. There were some hadith which didn't exactly match those conditions because Bukhari's conditions were very strict. So these hadith, Bukhari would use it as like a chapter heading and so on. So these hadith actually have some sort of discussion if they are authentic or not. So the next hadith which I'm going to mention is from the Ta'liq of Al-Bukhari, and it's not exactly the Sahih. And that's why there is some discussion about this hadith, if it's actually Sahih or if it's not. So what is the hadith? It's hadith number 5590 in Sahih Bukhari. And the hadith is that the Rasulullah said, there will be some people in my ummah who will make zina, silk, wine and music permissible. The word he's saying that these people are going to seek to make it permissible, istihalla. This word, according to those who say music is haram, they say this word, it means that originally, zina, silk, wine and music, all 4 of them, originally they were haram. That's why people are trying to make them permissible. If they were originally permissible, then why would Rasulullah say these people are going to seek to make them permissible? You only seek to make something permissible if it's originally haram. So that's why these people say that music is aslan haram. And this is the opinion of Tabari, Qurtubi, Ibn Hajar. Those who say music is permissible, some of them, they actually say this hadith is not sahih. So for Ibn Hazm and Qadi Abu Bakr Ibn Arabi, for them there is no sahih narration which says music is haram aslan. So for Ibn Hazm, he actually says in his Muhalla that this narration is also weak. And the reason he says it's weak, he says the chain of the narrators is not connected. So for a hadith to be sahih, one condition is that the chain of the narrators must be connected. i.e. a student listened from his teacher has taken it from his teacher. But Ibn Hazm says the chain of narrators in this hadith is disconnected. But great muhaddiths like Ibn Hajar and Ibn Salah, they said, no, the hadith is sahih because the chain of narrators is connected. They said outwardly it looks like in the form that it's the chain is not connected, but when you actually kind of go into details, the chain of narrators is connected. Al-Bukhari was not known to do any kind of tadlis, where he would, tadlis means where you hide the narrator. Bukhari was not known to hide a narrator, and basically their opinion is that the chain of narrators is connected, and that means the hadith is sahih. And Ibn Hajar actually uses this hadith as an evidence to say that music is haram aslan. So those who say music is haram aslan, this hadith, they say it is sahih. The second hadith that I'm going to show you now is the hadith which is used by those who say music is mubah aslan. And this hadith is from Al-Bukhari, and it's actually from the Sahih. It's not ta'liq. It's from the Sahih of Al-Bukhari. And in this hadith, what happened, Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, he actually came to Aisha radiallahu anha's house, and it was Eid, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was already in Aisha's house, and he was laying down and he just kind of facing the wall, and there were two young girls. They were playing daf and they were singing some of the songs. And Abu Bakr, he came and he saw these young girls singing, and he said, oh my God, like the music of shaitan in the house of, Rasulullah. And then Rasulullah turned around and he said to Abu Bakr, just leave the girls alone. And this hadith number is 952 in Sahih Bukhari. So those who say music is permissible aslan, mubah aslan, they say because these young girls, they are playing music, and that too in the house of Rasulullah, and Rasulullah knows they are playing music and he's not stopping these young girls. So this means that music is actually permissible aslan, but it can become haram, because of other factors, as I discussed before. So those who say no, music is haram, they say the hadith is not actually saying that music is mubah aslan. If you look at the hadith, when Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, he enters a house, he's actually shocked, and he's saying, how can there be music in Rasulullah's house? And the fact he's shocked, it means singing and music, it was not a norm amongst the Sahaba. They saw it as a bad thing and not something which is actually permissible. Also, they say that even though the singing is actually happening in Rasulullah's house, he's not listening to it for entertainment. He's just hearing it. And there's a difference between hearing something. So for example, when you go shopping, in every shop there's music. You're not actually in that shop because you want to listen to the music and get entertained, but you can't avoid hearing it. So it's like that. So they're saying Rasul is just hearing it and he's not actually entertained by it. So there's a difference. When you listen to music for entertainment, that's haram, but no one says if you can just hear it here and there, then it's haram. So yeah, the two groups understand the hadith differently. For those who say haram, they say no, if anything, this hadith is just telling us that daf is an exception. So for them, music is haram originally, but this hadith is an evidence to say that there are exceptions. And for those who say it's permissible, they say because this is a sahih hadith and this is telling us music is permissible aslan. Okay, so actually at the end of this discussion, we are left with three opinions. The first one is a consensus, the ijma of all the scholars, that music in which there are bad lyrics, it's you're sitting in a bad environment, you are in a bad gathering. The music video has haram dances, haram clothing. The music makes you think in a haram way. It makes you move in a haram way. All this music does, it makes you disobey Allah. Everyone agrees this music is haram, and that's predominantly the kind of music that our youth is actually listening to nowadays. Stay away from all kind of haram music. And music which makes you disobey Allah, you should know it's haram. But as for music which, like, there are certain nasheeds, they would have some sort of background music in it, not necessarily daf, it might be, I don't know, a piano or something. And is that kind of nasheed permissible to listen to because it's got a certain musical instrument at the back? For those who say music is haram, they would say no. If a haram instrument is used, that nasheed becomes haram. But those who say music is mubah, they would say, well, if you're listening to that nasheed and it's actually making you feel closer to Allah, then that music is permissible, because for them, music in itself, the musical instruments in themselves are mubah. But it also depends on every other factor. So end of the day, that's the three opinions we have. Clear-cut haram. There's mubah, but mubah, not all types are mubah. And there is ijma' on which type of music is completely haram. I hope it was beneficial. If there's anything correct, it's from Allah, and if there are any mistakes, that's purely for myself, and may Allah forgive me. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.